I'm Jason Pettigrew, editor-in-chief of Alternative Press Magazine, and your new best friend when it comes to dishing out rude awakenings about the music industry. Cautionary Tales and Lessons Learned is a podcast where musicians share their realities regarding their experiences in this business of music. The unofficial motto of the podcast was accidentally coined by Thursday frontman Jeff Rickley, who said in my debut episode, quote, "As soon as you think you know better, you're doomed." Thanks, Jeff. For episode number 2, John O'Callaghan and the Maine checked in to discuss his band's adventures as a big fish in Fearless Records' decent-sized pond, to the major label world of Warner Brothers, to tightening their inner circle to become the fiercely independent unit they are today, running their own label, 8123. Callahan can turn a wise guy phrase quite nicely, as you'd soon hear, but he's also ready to own it when discussing any shortcomings or delusions that he or his bandmates may have had in their storied career. Right now, though, things are working pretty good for them.
You've been doing the Maine for, it's 10 years now, right?
10 years. I suppose it'll be a true 10 years towards the summer of next year.
Okay. All right. So
well, I guess, yeah.
Nine change?
No, I guess technically it was 10 years in January. I don't know. I'm getting old, man.
You've been doing the Maine for 10 years. I'm thinking, well, it's really not a long career like some of those graybeards playing Rock on the Range or something like that. A decade of real life feels like 20 years of digital life by virtue of just trying to keep up with things. I mean, is that right?
I'd agree. I'd agree with that statement.
Yeah. Do you feel that way? Are there things that you deal with on a daily basis that kind of bear that out?
I mean, there are so many instances that I feel like just completely old and out of touch. I think that we've tried to balance the way that we utilize these platforms with both, a savvy tech mind, and that's not my mind. That's Tim, our manager, and Pat, our drummer's minds. We try to manage kind of that and being up to date and with the curve and with just being human beings and remembering to go outside and maybe not give away what you ate for lunch and what your turd looks like the next day, every day. So I don't know. It's always hard, but people still seem to care about some of the stuff, and we're trying to put the emphasis more on the music rather than the turd.
What an amazing quip! Thank you, sir. That's pretty all right. Well, let me go back into let me get back on the way back machine for a moment. I remember being it was South by Southwest. I think it might have been 2006, 2007, having a chat with Craig Aronson, who was obviously A&R at Warner Brothers. For people listening to this who don't know, Craig Aronson was key to a lot of bands' careers: My Chemical Romance, Against Me, Glassjaw, At the Drive-In, Jimmy Eat World, and he passed away in 2014. I remember he was at South by Southwest. I think he might have been there specifically to scout the Maine for the label. I think.
I can't recall specifically who was there to see. He was certainly there to kind of court us. And I definitely remember, just because we've only been to South by 2 times or so.
Right.
I definitely remember having extensive talks with him and a couple people from Warner's at the time.
Because I remember I was having this chat with him, and he said, I told him that I was telling him how frustrating it was back when we had the AP&R section where unsigned bands would give us their demos and we'd, show them some love in the magazine. And I was telling him how frustrating it was putting that section together, because nearly every band were being influences by a band who hadn't been together for like 7 years or even 5 years. And he said to me that he acknowledged that was a problem, but I remember the quote, "That's not a problem the Maine have." So yeah, I'm just kind of wondering if I don't know. I'm asking to get in the Wayback Machine to get a whole vibe of as to how you were feeling. How were you feeling? How were you taking care of your care of your business back then, in terms of everything, and kind of balancing that with the music you were making at the time.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the creative side, as far as the music goes, this was the first time that I had ever written songs, and ever, I guess, not necessarily written songs, but ever showing people and putting them out for anyone other than myself. So I think that a lot of influence came from stuff that my dad had kind of raised me on. And there were a lot of things that kind of were put together for us. I think, unbeknownst to us, I think that we weren't really aware that we were, had some sort of trend for following the footsteps of certain bands. And I remember somebody had given us the kind of I don't know, basically did the same thing, but was saying that we reminded them of the Replacements at the time or something like that. And I think it was more like the timbre in my voice or something like that. And my dad was a huge Paul Westerberg fan and a huge Replacements fan, but I wouldn't say that I was, and I've only become because of kind of listening and diving in and kind of getting more into songwriting and getting more into Paul Westerberg. But it was kind of things like that along the way kind of helped us stay away from too many close, I guess, around the same time period influences. I think that Pat and Tim on the marketing and kind of running our business side, they've always tried to push the envelope and take their ideas as far away from the scene and away from, I guess, the motion of the stream of everyone else and as they could. And it was for people like Craig and Bob over at Fearless that kind of helped realize a lot of those out of the box ideas. And really, I think what I think everybody along the way has kind of shared the vision of creating more of a permanence than kind of a flash in the pan. And I think maybe somewhere along the way during our second record, when we did sign to Warner's, just because of the kind of sheer volume of people we were working with and the vision not being shared completely, I think that might have been a little scatterbrained for us and for everyone else. And but we learned a lot from Craig, and we learned a lot from Bob, and we learned a lot about what we like, and I think more importantly about what we don't like, and the aspects of the business that really don't serve a purpose for our band. So it's been a long process, but we're slowly getting to a place where we kind of know what we want and know what we don't. So that's a good thing.
No, because that kind of segues into my next question, because you did sign with Warner's in 2009, and then it seems like you fought like mad to get off after Black and White, I believe, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then, like, you were talking about things that a label does that you wanted absolutely no part of. Well, what were the things that were frustrating to you, at that time frame?
I think the most frustrating thing about being on a label for us is that we're so hands-on with every small decision, and every small decision to us seems like a big decision, which can certainly be frustrating for people that are funding your music, funding your decisions in theory, and rightfully so have a say. And I don't think we really understood maybe the ways of old, in that, you know, here's a bunch of money and now you have to do what we say. I think we were part of this bratty headspace that was like, well, you signed us for our music and for hopefully seeing our potential. Now kind of get the fuck out of the way and let us do this the way that we want to. And we never really surrendered to, I guess we did in a lot of ways on that second record. And I think that maybe built up some sort of resentment towards the whole institution of you know, music in as an industry and as a business. We co-wrote a lot. We worked with a big hotshot producer. You know, there were a lot of things that we did bend to that ended up being kind of a wretched experience for us and for me as a songwriter. So yeah, I think after that second record, and especially after, I mean, not a lot of people know, but Warner's at the time was going through an overhaul, and the people that had signed us in the first place, I would say 6 months into us being signed and releasing our record, they were no longer there. So people from all sorts of different departments were all, you know, kind of easily shuffled out, and people new came in, and there was new management. And I'll never forget Tom Wally, who was CEO at the time, had invited us to dinner in New Jersey after a show, and we went, and it was a very ominous kind of dinner and a very kind of enlightening, in retrospect, talk. But he basically was, in few words, kind of telling us to get out and to basically like head for the hills. And at the time we didn't know what that meant. So when he was let go or stepped down or whatever they put down on paper, we decided that we needed to go somewhere else and be on our own. So it was a long time coming, and Pioneer was still, we were still technically, the next record after Black and White, we were still technically on Warner Brothers. They just let us release it independently, as if to kind of just appease, you know, that bratty mentality. And I think only when they realized that we were like, no, this is the way we want to release records from now on, did they finally give us the, you know, the cut the cord.
It seems like that part of the Maine's mythology seems very convoluted. Well, they're still signed to Warner Brothers, but no, what's Action Theory? Well, they're still signed to Warner Brothers. No, but what's Big Picnic? You know what I mean? I was just kind of wondering how to, you know, they let you release records, and some of those records were released in different territories by major labels. Like, wasn't Universal involved in those releases of those records?
I don't think Universal was involved, and trust me, for me, the whole thing was, it was a head spin. The whole thing is like, even still trying to think about it kind of hurts. But I guess, I don't know. It's hard to really kind of understand what happened. I don't know. It's it's crazy. I don't know. It's hard to even say. It's hard to kind of communicate and gather my thoughts, because that period was so drawn out. It was so long. There was moments when we, as a band, thought we were going to change our band name, thought we were going to just call it quits altogether. You know, because you're bound to this thing, this contract, and our lawyer was helping us fight to get off, and we're going to the, you know, our new A&R who replaced Craig, and you know, he's saying, no, you know, I see the potential that Craig saw. We just don't make records like you made them. And basically what we did was, with Pioneer, we just recorded a bunch of tracks with Colby, who ended up producing a couple of our later albums. and we brought a record to Craig, and at the time he was still our A&R, and we were really excited, and we thought he would share that excitement and enthusiasm, but he ended up not really digging it and kind of saying, good job. And we still believed in the music and the material and in the timing. Because if we wouldn't have put that record out when we did, I think we would have pushed things back. Who knows? I mean, in a year and a half, 2 years. And I think for us, the kind of cycle of it all is kind of what keeps it going. Going on tour, then releasing music, then kind of recycling that whole process. And we were at a stalemate for a while, so it was definitely a tough kind of it was just a tough period for everybody, and it would take a while for even a response to come back on the other end. And I think it was just a testament to the big machine that is major labels, is that you have all these heads of different departments, and in order to get something done, you kind of have to move the whole machine, and it doesn't move all together. It moves in parts. So I guess to answer your question, I'm just as confused as you are as to who released what when. I just know that the music was ours, and we fortunately got it out.
So that was all surrounding the release of Pioneer, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. So that turned into this, for lack of a better phrase, a clusterfuck.
Sure.
And that as to what's going on and do that, but then it seems kind of weird at that point in time. Well, I guess Warner's. I'm not making this the I Hate Warner Brothers podcast, but Warner's is. How did that deal differently with, what your arrangement with Fearless? Were you thinking was there some sort of, looking back on it, was there some exasperating naivete like, oh, we're going to Warner Brothers? Well, we already kicked ass here at the indie. Let's go to the next step because we're cool enough and we got great songs and people love us and let's do it. I mean, was there a lot of, for lack of a better word, was there kind of arrogance? Because you were enjoying a lot of success and a lot of notoriety and people were loving your stuff.
Sure.
Do you think it was like, oh, we can do this? Hell yeah.
I don't know if a lot of people know this, but at that time, Bob from Fearless was on the brink of selling his company to a major, and he was going to sell to a major that we. So basically, that put us in a position where it was like, if we ever get to a point where we are going to be on a major, i.e. Bob sells or we get upstreamed or whatever, are we going to be forced into a position and basically working with people that don't give a hoot about who we are and what we do? I think if it were up to us at the time, we would have just wanted to stay on Fearless. So basically, he was shopping his label, and we wanted to go at least explore the world of, Atlantic and Warner and Universal and wherever. So basically, he kind of, I'm not saying this in a negative context, but he kind of forced our hand. So Warner's kind of just felt like the only place that really actually shared a vision, or at least pretended to. And I think that that's kind of really important when you get into brass tacks, because I think that it's, at the end of the day, it is business. So even if you don't necessarily full-heartedly, believe in it, at least just tell me you do and just fake it a little bit. We ended up signing to Warner Brothers, and Bob ended up not selling his label. And obviously, hindsight, I don't know what we would have done. We felt a little salty because, I think that we could have made another record on Fearless, and who knows what would have happened. But yeah, that's just kind of the way it panned out. And you know, I think all these things, it's not a fate thing for me. I think they just all happened, and we kind of adapted along the way. And fortunately, you know, found a following that gave us the opportunity outside of record labels and stuff, and that's the most important part. So
more in control of your destiny than ever, for
sure.
better or worse.
Well, I
so
think
it's like we signed this horrible thing, but you know, we signed it. Nobody twisted our arms. It was our thing, as opposed to having to deal with somebody's other vision as to what, you know, your fate would have been.
Yeah, and I would be I'd be remiss if I didn't say that, you know, we were fucking definitely starry-eyed when we're sitting in a big meeting room with, you know, the heads of almost every department at Warner Brothers, and there's fucking donuts on the table, and and they're like, yeah,
they must have been really good donuts.
You guys are gonna be fucking huge. And you know, it was just like one of those, it's hard, it was hard not to kind of buy into it. And being 20 or 21 years old and hearing all that stuff, and then having felt, you know, slight success or moderate success on Fearless before, and people are coming to your shows and you're getting big tours, and it was hard not to feel like, oh yeah, we can do this. But once we released the record, and after we did the song and dance for them making the record, you know, a couple weeks into the release, the guy who was in charge of marketing our record transitioned to marketing Muse's record really quickly, obviously, because Muse is is who they are. So I think that kind of snapped us back into reality really quickly, and kind of made us realize that if we don't fight for ourselves, that we're going to get lost in the shuffle, not only at, you know, Warner Brothers, but in the whole landscape of music in general. So it was kind of a very important aha kind of moment.
Wow, and this is the thing that everybody aspires to, right?
What's that?
I mean, that's the big thing. You just kind of like, when
yeah,
you're even doing it at a certain indie level where the budgets are really limited, and then the next big thing is the, oh yes, we're on a major label and they're going to have all this opportunities for us. But then there's also that thing where just because you sign to a major label doesn't mean that the opportunities will be available for you, and it doesn't mean that, for that matter, it doesn't mean that suddenly an audience will be invented for you because you've got that situation.
Yeah, I think it would be really interesting to look to maybe like look at the roster at that given time of who was on Warner Brothers alongside of us and you know, whoever else, Green Day and Muse and stuff like that. There are only probably a handful at the very top that people would ever recognize, and then there's us and all the others that, you know, never really enjoyed that Green Day success. So
you were, and so the Maine were completely extricated from Warner Brothers by, what would that be, 2012?
I guess it would have been maybe a little thereafter, like 2012, 2013.
Gotcha. Okay, so let's talk some more about Warner Brothers. Avenged. No, it makes sense. Avenged Sevenfold are gearing up to have their big day in court with Warner Brothers, citing, you know, the label culture, the departure of key staffers, like you said, you know, people whose work was crucial to the band's success on Warner Brothers, and like there's also that 7-year contractual rule, as well as the concept of determining how much financial compensation should a label expect for an undelivered record, because I guess Avenged still owed them one more record before they left. I mean, do you think every band is looking to see how Avenged Sevenfold situation pans out? Do you think this is going to spark a great cognitive shift in the way bands are going to treat their business?
Oh man, I don't know. I don't personally feel like everyone should be looking at Avenged Sevenfold, because it's in my experience that what works for Avenged Sevenfold didn't work for us. So why the fuck would we look at what they're doing? I think it's really important to look inward and to really ask yourself what it is that you're trying to do. I get what you're saying from like legality standpoint and it being like, possibly groundbreaking for other bands, maybe in similar scenarios, not on the same level, but setting precedent for whatever may come in the future. But I know like Day to Remember, didn't they just settle for some sort of legal thing with, I don't know. I guess what I'm getting at is for us, maybe earlier when we started out, that those kind of things were more important. And I think that the most important thing we came to realize was that you can't ever compromise your integrity for the sake of someone else's dollar or someone else's vision. I don't know. I mean, I wish them the best. I don't know what's happening with their situation, but we're just focused on what we're doing, and it's hard enough to, be a band in general, and it's even harder to kind of make it a career and make it your only job. I would imagine they're enjoying pretty decent amounts of success. I've seen their names on arenas as we pass by through towards some shitty dump in the same city. So I think they'll land on their feet either way.
I think the big question here is what should a label do for a band versus what it actually does. Because, we're talking about, you did cite a Day to Remember, who've kind of taken a lot of things and believe that they have their distribution through Epitaph. And with your label, 8123, you're is there anything you're not in control of? So, it's kind of like you really don't need, do you really need a label to do that when you're taking control of all the aspects yourself?
Well, I think it's evident that everything has changed, and nothing is the way it was even 5 years ago with record labels. I think that it's important to realize that that these kind of ways of old, and these kind of forms of antiquated, I guess, just business and antiquated thinking when you're thinking of music as a business or music as an industry, it's really necessary for bands to realize that if you're not, you can't just sign anymore and be a big band, and I don't even think that was possible when we signed to Fearless Records. I think that was even maybe 7 years earlier than we signed, or even more.
What do you mean? What do you mean? Are you talking about like somebody sent a demo over to the guy at the record label in the nice white linen suit? He said, "Yeah, this is cool. We can sell this." Because as long as I can remember, the past maybe 10, 15 years, labels just want to come in and see what type of universe you've built for yourself. How many records did you sell on a local label? What's your touring history? What do you type your merch offers are? Is there an awareness about your band that people are actually like, so they don't have to do marketing completely from the ground up?
Yeah, I think that they've slowly turned more into banks than they are record labels, in my opinion. They take something, they throw money at it, and they're certainly looking for what you're saying, proven history. But at the same token, we've toured with, and you can go out and see artists and bands that have had millions and millions and millions of Spotify plays, but can't bring 50 people to a concert. So there's certainly a disparaging difference between success from the radio or from the internet and people showing up. And I guess that would be what I would tell anybody is, before you sign to a record label, just ask yourself a few questions. Do you want to be able to tour? Do you want to be able to have people come to your shows on tour? what are the things that you can do on your own to make those things reality. Because just signing to a record label doesn't mean that people are going to automatically, oh, I just signed to a record label, I have 150 people in a room now coming to watch my music. I don't know, it's a really interesting time. I think that's why we've gotten to a point where we are completely independent. And on the last record, not Lovely Little Lonely, but American Candy, we had a distro deal in place, and on this one we decided to kind of nix that and do it completely independent. And for us, that's just kind of the way that we're operating right now. But we're not saying that that's the only way by any means.
It just works for you.
Yeah, it does. It absolutely does. And for, you know, for all intents, record labels can still be great. And they can still have young cats come in and you know, be forward thinking, and probably are right now. It's just in our experience that it's been better independent for us than it has been on a record label. So that's where we're at.
I would think distribution would just be a huge, immense pain. Is everybody in the band like, okay, here's 20 pages of record stores, call them up and see if they want to handle our record, if they want to carry our record. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
is that what you're doing essentially?
Well, that's what our manager and a couple of people that we kind of you know had help from did. They called independent, not even necessarily record stores, but fucking coffee shops and independent businesses that would be like maybe into the idea of selling a few records. So in theory, what we did was we set up small pop-ups with the help of independent businesses. And we basically said, hey, here's a list of places that you guys can go buy our physical CD from if you still do that sort of thing. And from there, we had people, you know, people that support our music, just independent people on their own, basically become part of the record label themselves. And we set up sort of a referral program. So if you referred a couple people to buy records, you got X off on our web store or whatever. And we kind of did it as a contest to see who could sell the most records. And it was kind of like that fucking magazine sale thing that I did when I was in like elementary school. And you know, obviously we didn't sell as many as we did on Warner's, but you know, the whole landscape has changed, and we still did pretty darn well for ourselves in the first week, whatever that still means, if that means anything at all. But I think more importantly, we empowered the people that are going to show up into the room and be there for our music and be there for our tours, and hopefully just strengthen their belief in not only what we're doing, but the belief in feeling like you're a part of something. And really, that's what we were trying to do, is make people feel like they made the record with us and helped get that out into people's ears.
Were there any type of places in the distribution thing? Were there any type of places like nobody would ever think of looking to buy a CD that you ended up having your record in? Was there something? I mean, you talked about coffee shops, and in Cleveland we have a coffee shop record store. It's a coffee shop on the bottom floor called Loop, and the record store, all the record inventory is upstairs. So that's kind of a cool idea, but I bet there's not a lot of situations like that in the world.
Yeah, I think. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I think that was probably the most out of the box, was just a coffee shop.
Okay, I was thinking, I don't know, maybe if you had somebody, if you're like your bait and tackle shop,
yeah.
something, or maybe a bowling alley, or you know,
yeah, Bass Pro or
something like
Cabela's.
that. Yeah, Cabela's. I was thinking Cabela's would be nice. Yeah, but it's okay. But it was really, but that is a lot of intensive work. Something like that is ridiculously intensive. You sell less records, but you make more money on the ones you sold, as opposed to doing it major label style or something. has there ever been a moment where you have thought, damn it, this is too much. Can we sign to a label again? I mean, you're obviously a musician and you're writing and practicing and performing. What takes up the rest of your days? This administration, right? I mean, exactly, how does it feel to be responsible for obviously all of the aesthetic considerations around the Maine, but then all the business stuff around it?
For as much of a headache as it might seem, and maybe as it is sometimes, I guess what we can kind of stand behind knowing is that it's all on us at this point. So, if it goes down, then we go down with it. And I think that I don't know. It doesn't seem like busy work. You know what I mean? Like if you were to sit down at a desk and have to file papers, it doesn't seem like that. It's what's the next tour going to feel like? Who's going to be on it? And is it a support tour? Is it it's those kind of questions. It's those kind of, hey, should we release acoustic songs? And here's another idea. And hey, here's a lyric video idea. And are people even watching our YouTube videos? And maybe we should do that. It's stuff that's all heading back to the central focus, which is our band and our music. So, I like right now, especially, we've had a long year so far of touring, and it's been the most extensive that we've done, which is great. And it means people are definitely excited about what we're doing right now, which is obviously the most important thing for us. But I'd be lying if I said I wasn't kind of burnt. So this kind of, these couple weeks are super crucial. They're crucial for us to kind of regroup and gather our thoughts and sort of just kind of like unwind. And they're really crucial for our manager Tim kind of gearing up for what will be hopefully another long year starting in January. So it's kind of being off the road that it's like, okay, are people still going to be engaged when we're off the road? We're not posting pictures every day because there's not a show every day. It's like these are kind of almost more important times for people to kind of remember that you're still a band and you still have a new record. Well, for all intents, a new record out. So I guess to circle back to your first question, it doesn't, it's not necessarily exhausting because we're so much a part of it, and it's just become kind of threaded and into what we do and everyday life, I guess.
It just seems like it's like a left brain, right brain thing. You got to be creative in one aspect, and then just like, oh yeah, we got to figure out how we're going to pay for this much merchandise to be made and where it's going to ship.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just
and
like logistics.
Honestly, it's a lot of just Tim. It's a lot of Tim Kirch and yeah. I mean, we have. I don't think there are many other managers who would be calling coffee shops to get their band's CD in 10 years down the road. So we're pretty fucking lucky to have him.
He's the extra member of the band.
He is.
You wrote a piece a while ago about the concept of the VIP package. And just like, you want to meet us? Don't give us money. Just come by and say hi, essentially is what you were saying. I'm remembering about VIP packages and things like there was Rue Reynolds from Enter Shikari was really passionate about this, saying things at gigs like, if anybody asks you to spend money to meet them, walk the hell away from them. You know what I mean? It's not worth it. I remember a while ago, it may have been like 2010, 2011, the Gaslight Anthem offered pre-show mini gigs of deeper cuts before their regular show in whatever city they were in.
Oh, okay.
And the fans were like, why the hell should I have to pay extra for this? But it's like they were doing things instead of just like, hey, here we are, dig me.
Yeah.
Hey, here we are, dig me. We're going to do this thing at sound check where we're just going to play some deep cuts or things like that for like big fans, and there would obviously be some sort of fee for this, some sort of premium price for this is basically, because it's not like they're just like, hey, watch me eat the catering. It was just like they were actually playing songs that weren't going to be played the night before all that, yet people tarred them with this, you're all money hungry, blah, blah, blah type things. And there were significant fans with an enlarged sense of entitlement is the best way, I think, to describe it.
Sure.
And, that's something different. What was it that inspired you to write that piece about VIP packages? And you were on that. I believe you wrote that while you were still doing the free tour.
I think the one you're thinking of was written by Jared. But I mean, we all echo the same sentiments as. Were you talking about the Medium article?
I think it was the Medium. Yes, I believe it was the Medium.
Yeah. Jared had written that, and I think we were still on the free tour while he was writing it. That tour specifically for us was. It wasn't a stick your tongue out thing to anybody else. It was genuinely the fans, the people that have supported what we do, you guys have come out time and time again. And it was just a way of, again, Tim calling fucking malls and parks and whoever would answer and entertain his crazy idea to letting us do it. It was really just a thank you to people that have given us, fucking everything,
It was truly a gesture for the fans completely. That was
absolutely. Yeah, and I think a lot of people were confused by it. It was the funniest part because, we've had headlining shows that were way bigger, and those were, $25 tickets. I think that was one of the harder parts of communicating is like, no, hey, it's actually free. Like, you can actually just show up and watch us play. So, a lot of people were really appreciative, and I think that it just was a way of, again, communicating how appreciative we are of being given the opportunity to play for fucking 5 people or 500. It's we don't take it for granted, for certain.
That's a noble thing. And I can totally get behind that, but what's the economic situation with that? Even Fugazi's van didn't run on dirt. You know what I mean? There's expenses that get you in from each city to city, and I'm just kind of wondering. You were selling merchandise, I'm certainly assuming.
Yeah.
But was that pretty much how you got it?
Yeah, we sold merch, and we did a couple of paid gigs along the way. We went into the whole thing knowing that if we broke even, that was just as important, basically, as the cause, as the message, as the voice that we were trying to kind of use at the time. And we got a couple of people that frickin', that we've met along the way that helped us play venues. They rented out venues for us. And let us, host a free show at the House of Blues in Dallas, and I forget the name of the place in Minneapolis, but there's a couple of integral people that just out of the kindness of their heart and out of the same belief that we had, helped us do that. But as far as paying for it all, it was a couple of college shows that helped us make the money, and we certainly didn't, we didn't come out of that tour way in the green, but as long as we were somewhere near the yellow, that was just fine for us.
So it was worth doing. It was totally worth doing, even though you probably didn't make it all back.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that, we've had publicists, and I'm not discrediting or discounting their work. They can only do so much with what they're given, but we've had publicists for 10 years that couldn't get what we got on that one tour. We got, fucking CNN covered what we were doing. Like there was like a CNN online piece that we're doing it. And I don't know, it was just like, I think just people understood that at least what we were trying to do. Again, it wasn't us sticking our tongue out. It was us acknowledging at least that, hey, maybe I don't have to pay, $200 for this ticket, and maybe I don't have to pay $400 to meet Avril Lavigne. You know what I mean? Maybe there's, I don't know. We're also not making Skater Boy, so I can understand why people wouldn't pay that for us. But it's yeah, it was an awesome thing.
Would you do it again?
I would love to be honest. I think it would be really cool, and I think hopefully now that we had done it once, I think that we might have a better idea of where we would do it, and maybe make it not as extensive of a tour, maybe kind of limit it down to a few, a few shows on the West, a few shows on the East, and a few in the middle. But maybe more places, more venues would be willing to kind of actually, hear us out this time around, and let us take over for free.
You control freaks, I tell you. Mm-hmm. You just want to control every damn thing.
I know.
Why don't you just move to Washington, D.C.? What is the one thing, because in your career, you've really done a lot. It has been less than 10 years. You've done a bunch. What is the one thing that you would do to, seriously, we're a big fan of this phrase here at Alternative Press, manage the expectations of somebody who is just entrenched and wants to do this?
I don't know. There's not, because there was never one thing that someone told me or told us. I don't know if I can, impart like one nugget per se. I would honestly, what I think I would tell that person or those people, I would tell them to ask themselves one question, and it's just why am I doing this, or why do I want to do this? And if you can come up with that answer, and you can, believe in that answer, and truthfully say that this is why I want to do this, or what I want to do, then from there, you do whatever the fuck you can to make it happen. And I think that only until recently did we ask ourselves that question, and I think that when we started out, had we asked ourselves that question, things might have been different. But I think that it's important to have at least a vague idea of what you're working towards and why you're doing something. But I guess to reiterate what Tom Wally had said to us, it's to never compromise ever about anything. Never compromise for anyone or any idea, because you, at the end of the day, whether you like to think you do or not, you have the most clear vision of what it is you're trying to do and who it is you're trying to be. So yeah, I guess that's all I'd be able to give, unless you wanted to pay $5 million.
Hey, wait a second! Isn't that $4 million more than $4 million more than Dr. Evil? Yeah. Everybody go. Google Austin Powers, and you'll know what the hell we're talking about. Yeah. We have to worry about these things now. All these references we have to worry about.
You're right, man.
So that's like we have a culture now that has everything. everything at its fingertips and doesn't know what to look for in the first place.
You know what's funny is I was just like trying to quote Wayne's World at Thanksgiving because I had just watched it, and I'm like quoting it, and I forgot my youngest brother is 22, and he was kind of just like, "What are you doing?" And my older cousin that's 30 was on the same page with me, but I was like, "Fuck, man, I feel out of it. I feel old."
Yeah. Which it's really great because you're saying the segues to all my next questions. You're really good at this. Very intuitive about this, John. So thank you. My last question to you is: what would 29-year-old John tell 18-year-old John about life in a rock and roll band?
Oh man, I would tell him you're not as cool as you think you are.
Really? Are you sure?
I would certainly tell him that. And I would maybe tell him to drink a little bit less. Those are two things.
Those two things, okay. And to concentrate on the tunes and not the turd. There you go. That's the new marketing. That's the new marketing for this turd. The tunes, sure. Not the turd. It used to be the singer, not the song. No, it's the tunes, not the turd.